Minister Nkwinti, thank you so much for joining me to discuss this important document, strengthening the relative rights of people working on the land. I mean, the crux, as I understand it, is that those who have worked on the land for a substantial amount of time should have 50% ownership of that land. Obviously, it's been met with some resistance. Do you think 50% is fair or too lofty?
We think it's fair. Now, you then have had to look at what kind of formula, there would never be a perfect one, but what kind of formula you would use to ensure that to get as close as possible to an equitable redistribution of this land, taking into account the relative contributions of these people. So that's how we came to that decision. It's more a political decision than an economic decision in the first place. So we're satisfied that if you look at the different lengths of time people would have spent on the land, we think the redistribution methodology that we put in, we think it's fine and fair.
How do you envisage ownership rights, profit share, decision making, and would a farm owner be able to opt out of this, or would this be compulsory for every single commercial farm in South Africa?
Government will buy will pay for the 50%, except that the money won't go to one individual, the owner. It will go to a fund which will be owned by both of them. And that fund would be a fund which will go into A, redeveloping the farm, B is also to compensate those who want to opt out. Even if it's the farmer, that will be the case. So the fund, that's why the fund is not going to one individual, because the government, we recognize that both of them have contributed to the development, and therefore both of them should actually manage. So in other words, what we're talking about here, we're talking about a structural change in the ownership, which does not necessarily mean that you change the structure of production. You change the structure of ownership so that these people are recognized as having contributed.
My next question deals directly with the fund that government will set up for each farm. One of the major criticisms that's come out about this policy document is that inevitably it may be unconstitutional because it means expropriation without compensation to the owner.
Yeah, that came out in the last discussion. Lawyers, because we've got a group of lawyers as well as part of these discussions, because we want them to look at those aspects of the proposal. So they said, look, why don't you pilot this thing out to, getting volunteers who can run this rather than making it compulsory. We said that's part of what is being considered right now. As we said to them, we give you a year, consider all of those possibilities. So it's there, it's a proposal there. We have no problem with that.
Another concern that's been raised is that government will be managing these funds for each farm. Some have said this will completely open the funds up to abuse and corruption.
No, it is not correct. They themselves will contribute to that. I mean, they will control that. We even say in the document that government will be represented in the board, whatever structure, but it will have no voting right there, because people must participate and they must take those decisions without the state interfering in that.
The Democratic Alliance, which has lauded the National Development Plan, says this policy document is at odds with the NDP.
Yeah, we remember what the president said. He said, the economy is at the center of government policy. Secondly, we will embark on radical socio-economic transformation. The president wasn't saying anything new. He was saying something that was decided by the ANC conference. So we're implementing that. But the Democratic Alliance represents the landed classes in South Africa. We represent the landless classes in South Africa. So the contradiction will always be there between us and them in terms of how we see things.
Now, you've left quite a large commenting period. It's almost a year. I mean, does that mean you're open to negotiation?
Exactly. That was the purpose. We said, let's take a long view of it, so that we give enough time for people to comment. And we're very happy that people are commenting on this. All of them, they're actually doing exactly what we thought they should do. Contribute, make their views from the ultra-left to the ultra-right, all of them making a contribution to a very topical issue, a very emotive issue for our country.
You deserve to know more.
eNCA.com.